Welcome back. If you are exhausted by the narrative that traveling with children has to be chaotic, depleting, and fundamentally stressful, then you are in exactly the right place. This is the space where we reject the idea that intentional motherhood requires sacrificing your comfort. Here, we talk about motherhood, travel, homeschooling, and lived education through a calm, intentional lens. Today, I want to look at the real return on investment of luxury homeschool travel. I am not talking only about premium cabins and beautiful hotel balconies, although those can absolutely be a part of the picture. I'm talking about what this lifestyle actually offers: peace, presence, and the conditions for a deeply lived education. Because investing in your comfort is not just a splurge, it is a strategy. And it was not always obvious to me that this kind of life was even possible. Before I became a mom, I was very used to living a certain way. I love the quiet hum of a premium cabin. I love the feeling of walking into a spacious, beautifully designed hotel suite with a balcony overlooking the water. I love the absolute ease of moving through the world without rushing. And I vividly remember the chorus of voices telling me, enjoy it now because once you have kids, those days are over. There is a pervasive idea in motherhood that the moment you have a child, your personal standards must immediately drop. Comfort becomes frivolous, ease becomes unrealistic, and if you're traveling with children, chaos and exhaustion are framed as part of the deal. I do not agree with that at all. You do not have to downgrade your standard of living to be a devoted, intentional mother. Traveling with your child and educating them through the world does not have to feel like survival mode. It can be anchored in ease. When I talk about luxury, I want to be very clear about what I mean. I am not simply talking about thread counts, five-star lobbies, or flying up front, even though those things can be lovely. I am also talking about emotional luxury. Emotional luxury is time, it's space, it's calmness, it's ease. It is the strategic removal of friction so that your energy is preserved for connection, presence, and education. That kind of ease is not indulgent. It is not excessive. It is the foundation of the learning. So, let's talk honestly about the investment because that is where people often get uncomfortable. When people hear terms like premium cabin, airport lounge, private transfer, or spacious suite, they often assume this is luxury for luxury's sake. They assume it is aesthetic. They assume that it's about appearances. But that is not how I think about it at all. What we're really investing in is our energy and our peace. Traveling with a child is a monumental task. It's physical, mental, and emotional. If you arrive at your destination depleted, overstimulated, sleep deprived, and already at the edge of your patience, it becomes incredibly difficult to be the calm, intentional mother you want to be. It also becomes very difficult to facilitate the kind of lived education this lifestyle depends on. Learning does not happen best when everyone is surviving the logistics. It happens when there is enough calm to notice something, enough energy to answer a question, and enough margin to follow curiosity when it appears. That is why I always say luxury is relative. It's not a one-size-fits-all formula. In this season of motherhood and luxury homeschool travel, luxury is whatever buys you time, protects your peace, and removes unnecessary friction. For me and for my family, that may mean a premium cabin, a quiet airport lounge, private transfer waiting on arrival, meet and greets, or a spacious suite that allows us to decompress properly. After all, this is the life that I've always been used to before I became a mother. And for someone else, it may mean a smaller boutique hotel instead of a large noisy resort. It may mean a more walkable location, a calmer neighborhood, or simply more breathing room in the schedule. The point is not copying someone else's formula. The point is embracing ease in your own way. Think about a typical international travel day. The main terminal is loud, glaring, and chaotic. There are long lines, constant announcements, heavy bags, a tired child, and too many decisions happening at once. Now contrast that with stepping into a quiet lounge. The lighting softens, food is available immediately. You're not standing in the noise trying to think. You can sit down, reset, and breathe. That matters more than people think. When your nervous system settles, the whole travel day changes. Instead of scrambling, you can prepare. Instead of simply enduring the airport, you can actually use that time. This is where reading often happens for us. My daughter can pull out a book. She reads quietly. We may do reading in English. We may do reading in Spanish. She's bilingual. We might talk softly about where we're heading, what she may notice, what language she may hear, or what kind of geography we're about to step into. In that moment, the travel day is not stealing from the learning. It's supporting it. That is what I mean when I say these choices are strategic. The value is not the chair itself. The value is what the chair allows. The lounge is not important because it looks impressive. It matters because it protects our tone, our energy, and our ability to begin in peace instead of in survival mode. I want to take a break to tell you a little story because I remember on my flight with my daughter coming back from Amsterdam, I was so exhausted. And before the plane even took off, I fell asleep. And at this time, my daughter was about 5, so I woke up in a panic, like, oh my God, I'm a bad mom. I fell asleep and my daughter is sitting here. And when I got up and looked over to my right, my daughter had on headphones. She was watching Paw Patrol. She had a snack. Her bed was made up for her, and she was reclined. The flight attendant did all of that while I was asleep. And of course, I thanked her so much for doing that for me. But that can also make a difference, right? The support you can have as you travel in a premium cabin. The same thing is true the moment we land. After a long flight, the last thing I want is to stand in a taxi line comparing options while holding a tired child's hand and keeping track of luggage. I do not want to decode unfamiliar transit signage while already exhausted. I do not want to step straight from a long-haul flight into problem-solving mode. So, we do not do that. We pre-book support, meet and greets, we clear customs, and someone is there. The bags are handled, the car is waiting. We step inside, the doors close, the air is cool, and the first real exhale happens. That first hour matters so much. If the first hour is chaotic, confusing, and physically draining, the stress does not disappear once you reach the hotel. It colors the check-in, the first meal, the first conversation, and often the entire day. But when that first hour is smooth, quiet, and supported, the calm travels with you too. This is why I do not see those upgrades as frivolous. I see them as foundational. People sometimes ask whether they are really necessary, and I think the better question is, necessary for what? Necessary for taking a trip at all? Not always. Necessary for protecting your peace, preserving your patience, and creating the conditions for a deeply enjoyable and educational experience? Very often, yes, in my opinion. Because this lifestyle is not about proving that you can endure the most stress for the least money. It's about designing a trip that actually works for the life you say you want. When it comes down to accommodations and how we decide to book a luxury hotel versus a spacious apartment, I actually shared a list of specific evaluation questions in the last week's episode, so you can go back and listen to that. I can also do a separate episode, if you want, on how we evaluate and choose destinations themselves. What I want to focus on here is how we plan our days once the flight and rooms are booked. That is where a lot of mothers lose peace without even realizing it. The mistake is thinking the trip is planned once the tickets are purchased and the room is reserved. For me, that is only the beginning. Once I start mapping the actual experience, I'm looking for pain points. I am scanning the itinerary for transitions. I'm asking where energy is likely to drop, where hunger may hit, where the pace may feel too tight, where a space might be too crowded, and where the emotional cost may be higher than it looks on paper. In other words, I'm asking, where is the friction? Once I see the friction, I can ask the next question. How can I inject ease here? Sometimes the answer is transportation. Sometimes it's doing less in a day. Sometimes it is better timing, built-in rest, food already handled, or paying for privacy. Sometimes it means removing one activity entirely so the whole day feels more breathable. That is the part that people do not always see. They see the finished trip. They see the beautiful room or the polished experience. What they do not see is the decision making underneath, the thought process, the refusal to let preventable friction run the day. Think of it as risk management. That is where emotional luxury is actually built. The same framework applies to the experience we choose. I am never looking for a rigid tour that rushes a child through a destination simply because that is what the group schedule says. I am looking for what I think of as a personal historian. I want someone who can pivot, someone who understands the luxury of pacing, someone who can create space for genuine curiosity and seamlessly weave in history, geography, and culture without making it feel like a lecture. That phrase matters to me. Personal historian. Because the best guides are not simply repeating facts. They are opening the destination for your child. They're helping her notice, helping her connect, helping her ask better questions. They are helping her experience the place as something living instead of something photographed. And that changes the educational value of the day completely. This is where the whole framework comes alive. This is where we move from simply traveling to using the world as a true classroom. I think this is where the conversation becomes much deeper than lifestyle. Yes, beautiful travel can look lovely from the outside. People can admire the destinations, the photos, the settings. What matters most to me is what is happening beneath the surface of the experience. What is my little one learning? What is actually landing in a way it never could through a worksheet or a textbook alone? Think about how children are often taught about the world. They sit at a desk, open a textbook, and look at a picture of a distant country, a cultural tradition, or a landscape they have never physically stood inside. Someone explains the history or the significance, and the child is expected to absorb it and reproduce it later. Now, I believe deeply in books, in preparation, and strong home learning, but lived education does something different. It's tactile, it's relational, sensory, it's emotional, and because of that, it goes in deeper. A child may forget a paragraph she read once. She is far less likely to forget the smell of spices in the air while walking through a market in Morocco. She is far less likely to forget hearing another language around her, picking up phrases, watching artisans press argan oil in real time, or seeing the actual human labor behind something she might otherwise only know as a finished product. That is the difference. The lesson is no longer abstract. It becomes embodied. It becomes attached to place and feeling. Once learning is attached to feeling, memory changes. That is why I say the world becomes the curriculum. Imagine walking through a market in Morocco. The air is warm, the colors are layered and alive. Think of those spices. There's movement everywhere, sounds everywhere. And instead of reading one paragraph about local industry, women's cooperatives, or trade, your child is standing there, watching the process happen in real time. She can see the labor, the tools. She can hear the explanation. She can ask a question the moment curiosity appears. That is no longer just a fact about Morocco. That is memory, observation, culture, economics, geography, and human work all at once. When my daughter visited, interestingly enough, Morocco was colonized by France and Spain, and the experience, or at least the impact that that has left. So the ability for my daughter to speak Spanish or practice her French in a North African country is amazing. When we went to Turkey, it was a different experience, right? My daughter didn't simply read about textiles and move on. She sat in a room rich with the scent of dyed wool and watched the intricate precision of carpet weaving happening right in front of her. She saw the patience required. She saw the repetition, the mathematics inside the patterns. She saw the beauty that comes from the labor, not the magic of the end product. That kind of experience teaches a child to look beneath the finished object, to ask who made it, how was it made, what it represents, and what it tells us about the people who lives there. It also gives them an opportunity to think about the products that they continuously use. Even when we think about many products, even luxury products, women and children are usually the producers of such things. That kind of questioning and reasoning is educational gold. One of the most powerful outcomes of lived education is cultural fluency. And when I say cultural fluency, I do not mean collecting decorative facts. I mean a child beginning to understand in a very real way that there are many ways to move through the world, many ways to structure a day, many ways to eat, gather, communicate, work, and rest. That matters because it builds humility. It builds empathy. It teaches her that her way is one way, not the only way. Travel also gives language a different kind of life. At home, my daughter already reads in both English and Spanish. That rhythm matters to us, but once travel enters the picture, the language becomes useful. It becomes connected to place. It's in greetings, menus, signs, overheard conversations, and little moments of participation. Children respond differently when language has purpose. They become more alert to it, more interested in it, more willing to try. That is why I love those quiet transition moments so much. Reading in a lounge, talking about where we're going, listening to repeated phrases, using greetings with staff. Those moments make language feel woven into life instead of separated from it. We practice phrases in the target language of the different places that we visit. And that is always exciting for us because as my daughter practices and listens at home, she has the opportunity to use these greetings when we go abroad. When we went into the Greek Orthodox Church in Crete, and my daughter greets the elderly lady working in the church, and she says, Yasu. The woman lit up. She was so excited that this little American girl is telling her hello in Greek. Those moments make connecting with different people from different cultures ever so meaningful. Then there's the question people always ask homeschooling families about socialization. I think that question is often much too narrow. If someone's definition of socialization is simply a room full of same-age peers, then yes, this lifestyle looks different. But in that case, homeschooling looks different from a socialization perspective as well. If socialization means learning how to speak to adults with confidence, how to greet people respectfully, how to engage across cultures, how to ask thoughtful questions, and even how to listen well and how to move through unfamiliar settings with calm curiosity, then travel is an incredible training ground. It's a real-world interaction. It's learning how to exist in society, not just in a classroom. Travel also builds adaptability. Time zone shifts, food is different, rhythms change, things do not always go exactly as planned. Inside a calm, intentional structure, those differences become growth instead of disorder. A child learns that not everything has to look like home in order to be okay, and they will still be okay. For us, a huge part of this learning happens through hands-on experiences. I am always looking for ways for my daughter to do more than observe. When we were in Tanzania, she did not simply look at culture from a distance. She sat down and practiced beading alongside Maasai women. That is not just a cute travel memory. That is handwork, patience, observation, skill, and relationship becoming real. Because she loves plants and gardening, I also actively seek out farms and nature-based experiences wherever we go. When she sees how local farmers work, helps water crops, interact with animals, and notice what grows in a different environment, she's learning science, ecology, agriculture, and global awareness all at once. That is the curriculum of joy. And none of this works as well if travel is disconnected from what happens at home. The travel may be the spark, but the home base is the fuel. Before we ever pack a suitcase, we prepare. We read, we build context, we practice. My daughter already has a rhythm of reading, and once we know our destination, those reading blocks begin to shift in that direction. We might talk about food, geography, agriculture, customs, folk tales, or history before we ever arrive. That way, she's not walking into the experience empty. She arrives with references, language, images, and curiosity already forming. That learning loop matters. The travel validates the home learning, and the home learning enriches the travel. One gives structure, the other gives texture. One prepares the mind, the other anchors the lesson in memories. That is the real beauty of this model. It is also what makes the lifestyle sustainable. When people hear phrases like lived education or travel while homeschooling, they often imagine a family constantly on the move, living out of a suitcase with no roots and no structure. That is absolutely not what we do. We operate through a very intentional hybrid model. We have a grounded, structured life at home. That is our home-based model. It's where routines are built, preparation happens, and core learning is supported. Then we move into travel mode, which is not random wandering at all. It is a strategic, luxurious burst of lived education. That rhythm matters to me. Home gives us grounding, travel gives us expansion. Home gives us routine, travel gives us perspective. Because we move between those intentionally, the lifestyle feels sustainable instead of frantic. Within that structure, the greatest return on investment is not only what my daughter learns academically, it's the bond we're building. That to me is the deepest luxury of it all, because many of us as moms want to spend that valuable time with our children. And time is something that I'm sure many of us wish we had more of. When you remove the friction of travel, you get your energy back. And when you get your energy back, you become available again, available to the moment, available to your child, and available to wonder. You are no longer only functioning as a stressed out tour guide trying to keep the day moving. You become an active participant in your child's curiosity. Let me give you a perfect example. Imagine we are in Venice. Not the rushed version where everyone is pushing through crowds and checking off landmarks. We slow the whole experience down. We book a private water taxi and move through the quieter canals. The city begins to feel softer and more legible instead of overwhelming. Then we arrive at a private glass-blowing studio in Murano. The studio is warm from the furnace. Some may say it's uncomfortable. There is that unmistakable scent of heat, sand, and dust. There are no crowds pressing in around us. It's just the artisan, the fire, the glass, and us. My daughter is not simply looking at a finished object. She's watching the process. She's watching heat, patience, precision, and transformation. She's watching craftsmanship happen in real time. And because we're not rushed, because I am not depleted from getting there, I can fully be present just beside her. Having this experience on my honeymoon with my husband was nice, but experiencing this with my daughter is special in a different way. I can watch her face change. I can hear the questions form. I can let the moment stretch instead of clipping it off because we need to run to the next thing. To me, that is real luxury. Not simply the private boat or the beautiful setting or the private tour. The true luxury is uninterrupted presence. That is why I say this lifestyle changes the mother-child bond. You are no longer only the manager of logistics. You become your child's companion in discovery. You share delight, surprise, and the kind of memory that becomes part of the language of your relationship later. And for mothers especially, I think that matters so much because motherhood can so easily become defined by task and invisible labor. One of the gifts of doing travel this way is that it gives some of that relational space back. It protects our peace. It protects my energy. It protects her curiosity. And ultimately, it protects our connection. If you're listening to this and feeling pulled toward this lifestyle, I want to say something very clearly. The first step is not booking a premium seat or reserving a beautiful suite or choosing a glamorous destination. The first step is claiming your standard. Until you do that, even supportive choices will feel indulgent. It will feel optional. It will feel like you're asking for too much. But once you decide that your peace is worth protecting and that your child's educational environment is directly connected to your own regulation, energy, and ability to stay present, everything starts to reorganize. That is when you can begin to audit your current approach. Think back to your last family trip. Not the highlights or the photos, but the actual experience. Where did the friction begin? Where did your energy start draining? Where did you stop being present and start simply managing? Was it in transit? On arrival? At check-in? In the pace of the day? In meals? In overcrowded activities? In coming home completely depleted? Those moments matter. I think mothers are often taught to dismiss them and say, well, that is just family travel. I do not believe that. Many of those pain points are not inevitable. They are unmanaged. They're unsupported. They're often the result of default travel planning instead of intentional travel design. That is why I love the word audit here. An audit is not about shame. It's about clarity. What support was missing? What transition was too heavy? What part of the day demanded too much at once? What could have been decided earlier, slowed down, outsourced, simplified, or removed entirely? If arrival is always the breaking point, maybe the answer is stronger support on the ground. If rigid schedules consistently create meltdowns, maybe the answer is different pacing. If you're constantly solving food, transit, and timing problems in real time, maybe the answer is stronger planning. If you keep coming home from trips completely depleted, maybe the system is asking too much from you. None of that is failure. That's data. And if you know my daughter, she says she's always collecting data. Once you start seeing your travel experience that way, everything changes. You can refine instead of endure. You can say, this part worked beautifully, that part cost too much, or this part needs more support. You are not high maintenance for wanting ease. You're not indulgent for wanting support. You're being intentional. You are recognizing that learning does not thrive in constant stress. For me, every trip becomes part of a larger educational loop. Home and travel support each other. The travel informs what we explore at home, and home prepares us to notice more deeply when we travel. So when we come back from destinations, I am thinking about what it unlocked. What questions did she ask? What held her attention? What did she light up around? What is worth building on now that we're home again? If an experience in Venice makes her interested in glass, engineering, or structure, that may lead us into books or design on architecture. If a guide in Morocco opens questions about trade routes, geology, agriculture, That may shape what we read about next. That is why I do not see luxury homeschool travel as random. It's not a collection of pretty interruptions. It's a living curriculum. And that is where the return on investment becomes especially clear because now you're not just buying a trip. You are building a way of learning, a rhythm of connection, and a family culture shaped by curiosity and real world engagement. So, I do not think the best question is simply, is it expensive? The best question is, what kind of life is this building? What kind of mother does this allow me to be? What kind of childhood does this create? What kind of education does it make possible? Yes, the lifestyle requires money. Yes, it requires planning. Yes, it requires standards. And no, it is not the easiest path. If you're looking for easy, probably not. But if you're looking for a life where education is woven into your days, where travel becomes a vehicle for worldview and connection, where luxury is defined by the quality of your attention, and where motherhood does not require you to abandon your peace, then yes, it is absolutely worth it. Before we close, I want to leave you with a question, or maybe a few questions. Where am I currently tolerating friction that I could remove with a strategic upgrade? Am I traveling to check off a list, or am I traveling to expand my child's worldview through real connection? Am I actually allowing myself to enjoy the journey, or am I just managing the trip? Those are worth sitting with. The final piece of this lifestyle is what happens when the trip is over. I believe re-entry deserves just as much intention as the travel itself. When we come home, I do not want to rush straight back into everything as if the experience did not matter. I want room to notice what stayed with us, what felt effortless, what felt heavy, and what sparked the most natural curiosity. I have always been someone who thinks in systems, and that has not changed. I simply apply that same mindset to our educational travel life. After a trip, I am always quietly asking what worked, what drained us, and what I want to refine next time. There are 3 questions I come back to again and again. Did our accommodations genuinely provide the space and ease as we needed it to decompress? Which activities sparked the most natural, unforced curiosity in my child? And where did I feel the most friction? And how can I reduce or eliminate that stressor next time? Those questions matter because they turn travel from a one-time experience into a sustainable lifestyle. That is what this has really taught me. The best use of structure is to create the framework for freedom, to travel well, learn deeply, and enjoy being with my child. The freedom to protect your peace and to remain fully yourself inside motherhood. This has never just been about destinations for me. It has been about building a life where education is lived, connection has room to breathe, and beauty, curiosity, calmness, and structure can coexist. And to me, that is worth building carefully. If this resonated with you, I would love for you to subscribe and stay connected. We are building something beautiful here. Here is to intentional travel, deeply lived education, and a life that feels spacious instead of stressful. I will see you in the next one.